Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome or welcome back to a brand new episode of Sensation Nation. As with every week, I have another exciting topic and an even more exciting guest to help me talk about this topic. This is something that I discuss with people quite often, whether they've already made the transition, they're thinking about making the transition. I'm talking about the military transition. Most of you know I've been wearing a uniform for quite some time, but I'm not going to be able to wear it forever. One day, I'm going to have to take it off. And so at that point, I'm going to have to start a new chapter in my life and get adjusted to a whole brand new lifestyle. And I know for a fact that it's not going to be easy. As I have conversations with people that have made that transition, some of them tell me it's the best thing they've ever done. Some of them say, I miss it. I wish I wouldn't have done it, so on and so forth. So it's going to vary. But for someone that I know who had a very successful military career and is continuing to have a very successful career after the military, this gentleman is the perfect person to help me talk about the military transition. I feel confident that this is going to help a lot of people because this gentleman had everything going for him in the military, and some will go, wait, what? You're retiring? And when you get that whole shock factor of, wait, what? You're retiring? Some people may go, oh man, maybe I shouldn't. But if that's the only thing you have going in your life, you probably deserve to have that feeling. But if you know I'm ready to move on and to do something even better or greater, and this military chapter in my life is only one of the chapters in my book, then maybe you don't feel so bad about it. So as I search through my Rolodex, as if those things exist, those things don't exist anymore. But if I had a Rolodex, in this case, it's my cell phone contacts, I could not think of a better person other than this Alabama fan, Colonel Retired Marc Packler, who has been a great mentor, a person that I have followed for a few years now when I was working on staff. And I just watched him from afar, and every time we had an interaction, it was always a pleasant experience. Hasn't been retired very long, so it's still fresh for the most part. So I feel like he is the perfect person to kind of help me dissect this subject of the military transition. So without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the show, Colonel Marc Packer, United States Air Force, retired.
Well, I appreciate it, and it's always great seeing you, Shooter. I haven't seen you in person for a couple years, but hopefully I'm going to get to see you this fall. Even though we have a new coach in Kalen DeBoer, Alabama, Georgia plays this year. I can't remember what happened the last time we played y'all. I think it was the SEC championship that y'all were favored to beat us by, and I think we won 27-24. So if I could just get a little roll tide from you, baby. Just a little roll tide. So we know who the winner is in this conversation. So I'm excited. I'm excited to talk about. But this is a special week. I mean, this is a special week to be with you. Like, do you remember what happened this week a few years ago? Let me see. I believe it was 2020. This week, February 2020.
Oh, gosh. February 2020. Why don't you enlighten me on what happened February 2020? I can't quite recall.
I thought you were actually going to retire from us because weren't you flying home from, what was it called, Rocky Mountain, which is happening this week with General Radke. And what happened on that flight? I don't remember exactly. Didn't someone say, is there a Chad on the plane? Is that what it was? Enlighten me.
Oh, gosh. So you are absolutely, first of all, my memory is not as good. So I don't recall anything about Georgia and Alabama playing and Georgia not coming out on top. So my memory is just not working very well. I don't recall all the details of the plane, with my memory and everything, but you are absolutely right. It's been about 4 years now where I passed out on the plane and they had to call my boss to the back of the plane. By the way, I had the very last seat in the plane. My boss had the second seat in the plane, which was first class. General Radke had been trying to get first class for quite some time. We'd been traveling together, and he was very braggadocious when he finally got the call for his first class seat. And he was just like, he texted me. He's like, I got the first class seat, whatnot. And so I pass out on the plane. I wake up and they're like, are you on the plane by yourself? And I was like, no, I'm here with my boss. And they say, what's your boss's name? And they go, Chad Radke. If you're on the plane, could you please come to the back? And as soon as he sees me, he goes, I knew it had to be you because they pronounced my last name correctly, whatnot. And so the stewardess goes, honey, are you okay? Where are you sitting? And I was like, right here, the seat literally next to the bathroom. And then she goes, sir, where are you sitting? She looks at General Radke and she said, where are you sitting? He's like, I'm in first class. And she goes, honey, she looks at me and goes, honey, would it make you feel better if you sat closer to the front of the plane? He goes, Shooter, would that make you feel better? I said, yes, it would.
Yeah, and then we got home and COVID hit.
Absolutely. Craziness. But thank you for reminding me about all of these things. And I just felt it. I knew it. You had your coat on, and I was like, there's some kind of color under that coat that I can see that I don't like very well. And I knew you were going to do something like that. For those that can't see, and if you're just listening, this guy just put on his Alabama hat and his Alabama shirt with my Georgia jersey. That's what happens.
And what's even cooler about it is I'm actually in Tuscaloosa, Alabama right now, getting to visit my daughter. So it doesn't get any better talking to a Georgia fan while you're in Tuscaloosa.
I'm starting to think with this military transition topic that maybe you have too much time on your hands and maybe you should put your uniform back on and come back. You know, all this Alabama stuff, you look better in a uniform than you do with Alabama stuff.
Well, I did read the other day that they're letting them back, but only up to lieutenant colonel. So I'm out of luck. So you don't get to see me anymore.
I saw that. Matter of fact, I was going to talk to you about that. And so while we're on that subject of the military transition, I just want to say, welcome to the show. First of all, second of all, thank you for your service. Thank you for being a leader. Thank you for setting the example, not just when you were wearing the uniform, but even still today. I know you still go out and you do mentorship with CGOs and things like that. So thanks for your service. Thanks for what you have done, what you're continuing to do, and what you will do.
Oh, I appreciate it. And so I'd be remiss if I didn't thank my wife for her service as well. So 100%. I don't want to get in trouble because I'm pretty good at doing that still.
As a smart man.
And actually the service of my kids, because they actually have it tougher than we do, because we do our job, right, and take care of things. But my oldest going to Alabama, Sid, went to, 7 schools, a lot of transition in her life. And Casey went to, I think, 6 schools, successful at Mizzou now where she's at. At least it's all part of the SEC, and at least Texas for my wife joined the SEC, so I get to go see more football games at least. But those are the ones that really did the most sacrifice. And you really saw that during COVID. I mean, they were the ones. Thank God Deb had retired to be able to take care of the family, while guys like you and I were busting chops every single day. That's right. You know, and it's awesome that you bring that up. You know, we hear about spouse appreciation, military spouse appreciation month, and we hear about the month of the military child, which happens to be in April and things like that. But we have to appreciate and acknowledge their sacrifices every month, not just every month, every day, because we are not allowed to do what we do without them. And when we transition in or out of the military, they transition in or out of the military too. So absolutely, that is factual. So I want to ask you now. All right, I'm ready. Seeing how handsome you are with your Crimson Tide colors on and all that other good stuff, you know. Tell us a little bit, for those that don't know, that may be listening and watching. Tell us a little bit about your current role and responsibility, as well as your history in the United States Air Force. Yeah, so you know, it's great that you put it that way, because what you do in the military will help you when you get out. But, you know, if you're just cyber, there's so many just cyber, you know, you have something unique that you did within cyber that makes you a skill set or marketable when you get out. So for me, when I was going to school, intermediate developmental education, I lucked out to work at a think tank, and I lucked out to be a legislative fellow for Senator Ben Nelson from Nebraska, which I learned a great deal about. I learned more about how our government works, because, you know, we usually only focus on the executive side and don't really understand the importance of the legislative side. And then later on in my career, I was lucky enough to go to be the chief of legislative affairs for U.S. Cyber Command. And so I was able to take that knowledge with my cyber knowledge when I got out. And when I got out, I said, you know what, I don't want to do anything with the government. I want to try something new. I want to go totally commercial. And I interviewed for a lot of jobs in the commercial sector, a deputy chief information security officer role for this or that. And an epiphany happened. And I'll get to that epiphany in a second. But I'd always kept in touch, and your network is very important to keep in touch with people. Every week, I try and send a note to someone that I haven't talked to in the last 6 months, just to say, as you get every now and then, usually after an Alabama victory, a morale check or something like that, right? To put a smile on someone's face. Well, I kept in touch with the Deputy Chief of Staff for Senator Nelson's office, and he told me to call this guy, and I called him and ended up getting an interview. Flew down there right after I'd retired, and I was still going for another Chief Information Security Officer role, and that epiphany was, wait a second. What does a day in the life of PAC look like when I take off my uniform? And I had a little advantage because my wife had retired a couple years before me. And when I talk to most people that retire, the first thing they bring up is a dollar figure or work. And when my epiphany happened, I said, the number one thing for me is to be able to visit my daughters in college, go to football games, and take my wife out for dinner whenever I want. It had nothing to do with work. It had nothing to do with money. It was to be with my family, right? Because I had missed a lot. Especially those last 2 years, as you know, during COVID. But I did not want to miss anything else in my kid's life. Now, I always prioritize my family in life. I mean, when I was a commander, I would put, if my daughters had a soccer game, it was on the calendar and I went. I think I missed, between both girls, I think I missed one home soccer game their entire high school career. That's how important that is to me. And thank God I had a very supportive boss that knew that I was going to do that, but I'd still get my work done. So that epiphany occurred, and I said, okay, I don't want to be a Chief Information Security Officer for those Fortune 500 companies or this or that, because I'm on call 24 hours a day, 7 days a week again, and that's not the life I want to live anymore. I've been living that life for the last 26 years, almost 26 years. And so that's when I knew that's not what I wanted to do. And so after I had that interview, one of the lobby firms actually called to interview me because there's, again, that special skill set is the executive and legislative branch. And so I ended up working for that first company, Silent Quadrant, but we formed a partnership with the lobby firm. And so that's how I ended up where I am today. Our Silent Quadrant broke out because they provide cybersecurity to most of the top 30 lobby firm, trade associations, those kind of organizations. In DC, it's their niche. But then I'm helping companies with getting to the DoD, businesses get into the DoD, and how do you navigate that system, whether it's through legislation or getting in the executive branch. And so we formed a small company called Quadrant 4 that does that. And so that's what I get to do. I love it. Enjoy going to work every single day. Still put a big smile on my face. But I go back to, I can do that stuff like I'm sitting right here coming to visit my daughter in Tuscaloosa. And the other part I would say about retirement is, or I still remember going to, I went to the Sugar Bowl when I was a group commander. And I remember flying out the day before on the last flight. I went to the game in the Sugar Bowl. It ended at like 1 a.m. in the morning. I had a 5 a.m. flight. So I went straight from the Sugar Bowl back to the airport to fly home to go to the game. That's not the life I want to live anymore either. Because we're in such a rush because we got to get back because we're a commander. We got a job or this, that, or the other stuff. Now I might fly out on a Thursday, go to the game Saturday, and leave Monday. So I get to spend more time with my family and take those moments to relax.
Very nice.
And so,
very nice.
That's what I do, which I'll be doing during the Alabama-Georgia game this year, too. I think it's I forgot the second and third week, I think, this year. September 18th, I think it is.
I'm excited about that game just as much as you are because, I will tell you, I actually was busy this time when Georgia lost, and I know you were trying to call me on several occasions. And, I just, I had some things going on. I couldn't answer the phone.
I heard you were doing
time.
A podcast.
You sound like you are really having fun in your next chapter. I know your military career was kind of founded on like cyber and communications and things like that. And you talked about legislative affairs and things of that sort. And when you decided to move on to your next chapter, it wasn't necessarily driven by cyber. So it sounded like to me that you made sure that you didn't pigeonhole yourself into just one area of expertise. You had a wide scope of things, which opened up more opportunities for you to have a little bit more flexibility in your current life. So I think I know the answer, but I kind of want to hear you say it. Are you happy with your transition post-military, and what do you enjoy the most about it, and are you really just having a whole bunch of fun right now?
Yeah, so that's a great question. So the answer is I'm having a blast. I'm having a blast for a couple of reasons. Number one, you always hear when people retire, they say, "Oh, you look younger," right? Uh, we look younger because the stress that you're put under in those jobs is gone, right? So if you think about it, let's just take as a commander, right? 1,000 people, 500 people, 200 people, whatever it is, right? 100 people. Now you got their families. Now you got people deployed. You got bombs going off around the world. You got networks going down. No 2 a.m. phone call is good. And you put all that together and boil it all together. That's a stressful life. Even though you smile every day, you feel it behind the scenes, right? When you retire, it's as if the world's lifted off your shoulder. I'll tell you, there's 3 phases of that feeling. The first phase is when you submit, and then you get the orders. You know how special my dad was to me. We talked about him a bunch, but I actually got my retirement orders on his birthday.
Wow.
Which was super cool. So that's the first step, knowing you have retirement orders, right? A third of the world is lifted off your shoulders at that point, right? And I see people go one or two ways at that point. Either they just blow everything off or they still work the same way as they did before, right? And I would encourage everyone to work the same way they did before, right? Because you still got airmen, soldiers, sailors, Marines, Coast Guardsmen that we're supporting around the world every single day. And then the second time is when you're at that retirement ceremony, right? And that's because you know you're starting terminal leave. And so you feel that next third wave off because you know it's done. But that huge emotion is when you hit that day. For me, January 1st, 2022, my wife and I sat there with a bottle of single barrel Jack Daniels that my dad would have toasted to, as a lot of people know me. And me and my wife just sat there together and had a toast because I was no longer under the UCMJ to be. But it was just those 3 phases do it. So the stress is gone. Number 1. Number 2, your time is your time for the first time in a long time, right? If you think about it, when you're on vacation, you can still get called to come back, right? And I think about September 11th was a moment in our life, but I got married November 3rd, the first time, because my unit was about to deploy, and so Deb and I went to the Justice of Peace, and then our chaplain from our unit married us. But I was still able to have my wedding the next week. We didn't think we were November 10th, so she married me twice to make sure it's what she really wanted. I think, I'm not sure, but no honeymoon, no this, no that. No one's fault. It's just the events of the world. Yes. That time is not your time. Now this time is my time, like being here with my daughter. I get to go see my other daughter next weekend. That's the joy of life.
I love it.
It's not working every single day. And a lot of people lose that sight. A lot of people lose that. I see people that work is their only thing. They have nothing else in their lives. And those are the ones that I see have the tougher transition because their identity was all about the Air Force. Yeah. My identity was not the Air Force. It was just a part of me, which has made it probably a lot easier for me because I knew there's a lot of other things I want to accomplish in my life.
That's a huge piece of advice that I hope folks just picked up on. There's a lot of folks that have that whole dedication to service and things like that. But you have to make sure that you are living a well-balanced life, right? You want to make sure that your family is still around and still there at your retirement ceremony, sitting in that front row. And I saw a meme the other day of someone holding up a sign that said, "No one is going to remember how long and how hard you worked except for your kids." And I think that is an absolutely huge message to take from that. And I'm happy to see how happy you are. It's not like, hey, I missed the military per se, but I'm happy to see that you successfully completed your military duties. You retired honorably, and now you're living a well-deserved and well-earned next chapter of your life. You and I talked about it before we started recording. the Air Force is, the military as a whole, we're kind of hurting, kind of like an 80-year hurt, if you will, worse than 80 years with recruiting and retention. And they recently offered an opportunity for about 1,000 folks to return to active duty who had been retired. And it's only up to lieutenant colonel. But I will ask you, let's just say hypothetically, if it was up to colonel to come back for a few years, would you come back?
Yeah. No. But I want to highlight one point first before you say that about the family. You're right. You got to remember this. The Air Force is going to divorce you. It's going to divorce you on your terms or their terms. So we know it's going to happen, right? And so you want your family there. Now, I used to have a philosophy that I adopted from Colonel Mike Black when he was my squadron commander, right? Family, fun, fairness, fitness, and flying. Now, I always talk about family. It doesn't mean you're married. It could be your church family, your synagogue family. It could be your skydiving family. But there has to be other things in your life because we know this divorce is going to happen to do that. Now, let me go answer your question of the reason I wouldn't come back. I became non-deployable, and I believe, and they won't let me take a PT test anymore. They banned me, right? So I believe that if I'm in charge, I need to meet the same standards that my airmen meet. And how can I send young Americans off to war if I can't go anymore either? And those were a couple of factors that led to my retirement. Like if I can't take a PT test anymore, how can I hold you to that same standard? I'm not a guy that, there's reasons for waivers, this and that, but it's not me. It's not who I am. It's not how I was brought up in the military. And I owe that to two chiefs when I was a young lieutenant, Chief Ronald Noah and Chief Steve Noblin, that were like my mentors as a young lieutenant. That's why I learned how to terminate fiber quicker than my airmen. That's why I learned to program routers. That's why I got my Security Plus when I first did back in 2009, because we were making all our airmen get it to have situational awarenesses. So if I'm going to do that for my career, why would I not do it the same for deployments and physical fitness testing? And so because of those two things, I would not come back, because it's not fair to lead airmen that you can't do the same thing they do every day.
Very well. Very well. You talked about those three phases of your transition to retirement, all the way starting from submitting or hitting the retirement button, so on and so forth. I can see now, and I hear the joy and passion in your voice with regard to the new chapter that you're in. And it just sounds like to me that it was a pretty smooth process for you. But I'd rather hear it from you on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being like super hard. How tough was the transition for you? If it's 1 being super easy, what was easy or hard about it? Where would you rate that transition on that scale?
Yeah, mine was a 1, but I have a huge advantage. Is my wife retired 2 years before me, so I saw the process of what it takes to go through that. So it wasn't an experience that I was doing on my own. Is number 1. Number 2 is the two chiefs we had, Chief Spencer and Chief Walsh, who I'm sure you remember. All 3 of us were retiring at the same time. So we had someone to lean on to help during that phase. If I didn't understand something, or if they didn't understand us, the 3 of us kind of did it together, which was huge, really huge to have a support factor. Because again, when you're a colonel, when you're a chief, a lot of times there's not a lot of people for you to talk to. But that circle that we had, that camaraderie we had, really helped out. And all 3 of us are now successful in what we do. One working private industry, commercial, I should say. One as a GS employee, and then me kind of self-employed, I guess, right? The other reason it wasn't hard for me is I was ready. I knew I wanted to retire. I knew the time had come. So I retired on my terms when I was ready, which led to easier for me. The other part that made it very easy for me is, again, as you know, how close I was to my dad and what happened. And what my dad missed in life because he's no longer here with me. I did not want anything to ever happen where I was not there for my daughters. And so I knew that I was going to be able to spend more time now with them, which made it even easier, a transition for me. So everyone worries about the big transition for you is usually money, or worry about that, right? There's plenty of jobs out there for us. I mean, they're out there every single day. So I was never worried about getting a job. That was not like the top of my list. Like, oh my God, I got to get a job, right? It was about that family and not missing opportunities. And because I looked at it that way versus a job, the transition was very smooth.
I like it. So I appreciate that perspective, and I appreciate that advice. And for folks like myself that are currently still wearing the uniform, as you mentioned, the Air Force will divorce us in some form or fashion, whether it's on our terms or the Air Force's terms or whatever service you're in or whatever civilian organization you're in. I think this is applicable to whatever job you're in right now.
Whatever it is. Yeah.
What type of advice would you offer to someone to help prepare for that transition? Yeah. It's coming. We know it's coming. But what advice would you offer to someone to prepare for it?
Yeah, that's a great question. In the military, a lot of times it's hard to take care of yourself when you reach a certain point, because you want to care about, again, your airmen, your civilians, and let's not forget our contractors as well. We forget about them a lot of times, but they're a huge part of our team as well, that we can't get things done. But you have to set time aside to do what you need to do to be successful, to transition. You cannot wait till the last minute to get everything done and expect it all to be perfect. So draw out a plan, right? Lay out, here's the steps of what I need to do to get there, from all the way you could put from submitting your retirement, right, all the way down to the day I retire. So, for example, I'll give you a great example. My DD-214. So I got my DD-214 back, and it said home of record, Tuscaloosa, Alabama, which is a great place. If I haven't told you that you're coming to visit this year, I hear. Roll Tide, right? But my DD-214 had Tuscaloosa, Alabama. Well, that affected benefits for my kids, because I was really, every bit of other paperwork had Texas in there. So I had to go to the Total Force Center to try and get it updated. I could not get it updated. I had to go all the way to some folks at AFPC because they had to amend my orders to come on active duty in 1996 to coming on duty, Tuscaloosa, Alabama, home of record, Houston, Texas. Right? Well, that takes time. And so those are the kind of things that you don't know are going to happen when you retire, but that's a huge benefit my kids need, right? I got to make sure it's right. But would you ever think those kind of steps? Well, you get your DD-214 back late, in December for me, because it was a January my draft, right? And thank goodness to our Force Support Air Force Personnel Center, those guys do great work. But it should have been my responsibility in 1996 to make sure that order was right. But I'm a brand new second lieutenant. I don't have a clue what I'm doing. They handed me a piece of paper and I said, great. The second part of that I would tell you is, in preparing for your retirement, make sure you have all your documents previously, right? I actually had to get that corrected. I had to have my, I want to say it was my scholarship paperwork for my University of Alabama when I came here. To prove my home of record was Houston, Texas, right? But if you have to do that December 28th and you retire December 31st, dude, you're in trouble to get that done, right? So plan it out. Make sure you get it all done. You're going to get that checklist from you. Do it. Don't wait till the last minute, because that's then all of a sudden now you have all this stress. Oh, wait a second. I want to get it all done before my retirement ceremony. Now I'm stressed. Right. Oh, my God, I'm not going to get terminal leave because I didn't get all the stuff done before my retirement ceremony. So now I'm stressed again. Right. And then now at that same time, you're trying to find a job or whatever it is you decide to do. You're trying to maybe relocate to find a house. Right. If you're at that age of retirement, right, your kids are off to college, or, our parents are getting older. So now add all that real life and this huge impact in your life, and it makes it very stressful. So I had a plan. I laid it out. And I knew exactly when I had to get stuff done. and so that's why it was. And I had a very supportive wife. I love her to death because she was a personnelist. Excuse me, fourth support officer. I don't want to get in trouble. Right, but she helped me along the way as well. Very supportive.
Wow.
Right? And so that helped a great deal as well.
Ladies and gentlemen, those are very real things spoken by a very real person who experienced some very real scenarios. So take heed for those that are close, those that are thinking about it, and those that are not close. It will creep up on you before you know it. So as he mentioned, start making that plan now, right? There's never an issue with planning too soon. So, Colonel Packler, I want to ask you, we talked about so far, your current chapter and things of that sort, and we know that you had a successful military career. Most folks that I talk to, regardless of whether they want to admit it or not, most of them will say they miss the military as a whole, or they miss certain aspects about the military. Is that the same? Is that true for you? And if so, what parts about the military do you miss?
Yeah. So, of course, you always miss the people. And this is kind of weird. I now live in the middle of nowhere in Texas. It's hard to say this, but it's a fact. You go to the commissary to get a quart of milk, and it takes you an hour to do it because 150 people on base and you have to say hello. And all you really want to do is get home and take your boots off and your uniform on and go spend time with the family, right? I don't miss that. But I do miss when I would see my airmen with their young kids and I'd get them a little Snicker bar, or if they were at a Starbucks, you get those, cake pops or whatever it is, right? And seeing those families you miss. But I just... Do you really miss working 18-hour days, right? I still remember, and you remember this, and thank God we had great leadership all the way to the top, right? Every morning we had a 7 a.m. brief for COVID, like we were briefing the Pentagon, right? We pre-briefed General Radegui at 6 a.m. Well, 6 a.m. my time, it was 7 and 8 y'all's time, right? We worked all day with amazing folks like Joe Steyer and Rob McQuaid, Justin Collins, Steve Anderson, and the list goes on and on and on. And we would produce a document that we'd publish at about 11 o'clock at night, go home, eat dinner, repeat the same cycle from February to I think almost June or July, where we finally started going down to less than a day. Are you really going to say you missed that? If you do, I'm going to say you're crazy, right? So I don't miss that. This is a little bit harder to say, but it's true. I don't miss having to take care of all those families. And the reason I say that is it's the stress, right? So every time a bomb goes off somewhere in the world, the first thing I'm thinking of are one of my airmen there. Oh my God, I'm going to have to tell a family that something happened, right? That's the part you don't miss. Do I miss saying hello? Absolutely. But when it goes to the people, when you think about it, and we've talked about this before, right? I can name from every base that I've been at the one or two people that I still talk to. That's it, right? So in 10 bases, that's 20 people, right? And so if you were to come meet say Tony Thomas, right? And I work with Tony Thomas every day. Phenomenal, another phenomenal airman. I'm not going to say, hey, this is my Air Force buddy.
Right.
I'm going to say, hey, here's my buddy Tony Thomas. Right. Now, it doesn't mean we're not going to talk about Air Force stories.
Sure.
And this and that, right? But that's what it's about. Do you miss promoting people? Do you miss quarterly awards, yearly awards? Absolutely. Do you miss the discipline? Absolutely not. You have families' lives in your hands when you're deciding whether court-martial or Article 15 someone or this, that, or that. So I don't miss any of that. And I still get it. I still talk to the amazing people that I worked with that I really wanted to stay in touch with, right? The Joe Steyer, Rob McQuaid, Tony Thomas. I talk to them every week just to say hello. Tamara Shelby, our amazing executive assistant, and kudos to her for over 40 years of this service to this great nation, and she'll be retiring at the end of the month. Chief Spencer, Chief Walsh, right? You still talk to them, but but it's on your terms, on your
Right.
time, at no
Right.
stress, right? And you're not going to talk to them about, oh my God, a network's down. Oh my God, we have a discipline issue. Oh my God, something broke, right? You're going to say, hey, how's your family doing? And that's why I would say I don't miss it too much. But I had a blast.
Sure.
But again, it wasn't my only identity. And so since it wasn't my only identity, it was, now I'm getting to do the other things that I really want to truly do in life.
I appreciate your realistic response, and it is very evident that it is a truthful, heartfelt response, because in most cases, whether it's true or not, when you ask those questions, the response will be, I absolutely miss it. I miss everything about it. Or you may get, absolutely not. I don't miss one single thing about it. It's the worst thing I've ever done, so on and so forth. And I like the fact that you highlight some of the things that you miss and some of the things you don't miss so much. And that's actually being real, and which is a perfect transition to the next question, right?
But there is one thing I really don't miss. You Georgia guys sending paperwork back to us Alabama guys saying we misspelled words when we didn't. I'm just saying, because
hey, no offense to the Alabama public school system, but we're both schools from down south, but one of them happens to have a better school system than the other, and I won't highlight which one. I'll just let you guys go look it up on your own.
And think about this, right? Do you miss writing OPRs or EPRs?
Right.
Do you miss all that paperwork?
If someone says yes, then something's wrong, right?
Something's wrong.
Something is definitely wrong. So regrets. Most people say you should never live life with regrets. Some people end up having regrets, whether they should or should not. Do you have any regrets, whether it was joining the military at all, staying in too long, not staying in long enough? Do you have any of those regrets?
I have a couple regrets in my in my life, and it all goes back to airmen. I've lost a lot of airmen in my time in the Air Force, and I always ask myself, and we did lose one, as you know, when you were there at ACC, and I was there. And I can name every single one of them to my surprise. I always regret, was there something else I could have done? I know in my brain, there's probably nothing I could have done, right? But I regret it to this day that I couldn't do something to help it out. And I want to highlight Chief Bogart. She was my superintendent, Master Sergeant Gilmore at the time, retired senior Master Sergeant. I think it was my second day in command. I had a young airman that tried, and I can still see it to this day. A belt on a fan, the fan fell, and so he didn't make it. Taken to the hospital and survived. Thank goodness, right? I still see those marks on his neck, right? I didn't know that young airman at all. I had just taken command, but was there something I could have said at my commander's call that would have made a difference that first day? Right? Those are the kind of regrets I have. I have a regret that I never went to Iraq. During my time in the military, I sent folks off to war. Now, I deployed 3 times. My wife and I were in Afghanistan at the same time at 2 different bases. But there was a long string of time there where I didn't deploy, and I kept trying to deploy, but I was in jobs that were non-deployable. Whether it was a fellow or this or that or whatever it was, command, right? I regret that. And probably my last regret is something that I'll never be able to know is when I let an airman down. Why did I let him down? And I didn't know why. Now, when I say airman, that's enlisted, that's officer, that's civilian, there's contractor, right? But I tried to do the best I could every single day. And I know there are times I let airmen down, and nothing I could do. But those are the kind of regrets I have. Do I have regrets about the job? Do I have regrets about my time? Not at all. I had a blast. I still can't believe that it seems like just yesterday I was a second lieutenant, and it was a rough first assignment in Cocoa Beach, Florida. I wanted to take one for the team, and I did. But no, I don't have. it always comes down to people regrets, not anything else.
Yes, I will tell you, I also endured one of those hardship tours in Cocoa Beach, Florida as well. So I know what it's like. But I seriously do want to thank you for sharing like your open and honest regrets, because I would imagine those are some of the hidden things that we carry that most people just cannot see, right? We highlight leadership positions, whether it's command or whatever it may be, or you get all those folks to say thank you for your service and things like that. And we're wearing a uniform and we're out representing well like we're supposed to. But beneath that uniform is something that we may be kind of harboring and carrying with us. And I appreciate you for sharing the very realistic view of what the life of leadership can actually be like.
Oh, yeah. It's not, I tell people about being a leader, not a commander, or just being a leader, that you live in a glass house. And everyone's trying to throw stones to break that glass house down. And the reason that is because 50% of the people love you and 50% of the people hate you. And 50% of the people don't know whether they love you or they hate you, right?
Oh, I like that.
And so it's a challenge every single day, right? And you have to give it your all. And when you give it your all for that long, that's why command's 2 years, because it's hard. It is not easy. And but again, no regrets. I mean, I had a blast, except for letting airmen down.
You and I are looking at each other now, and we're looking at the opposing team's uniform from across the way. But as you look at me and I look at you, and folks that choose to watch versus listen will be looking at you and watching you as well. And it's a opportunity for
they're in trouble if they're going to look at me. I mean, come on now.
Well, you're just going to highlight their day is what is it going to be. But as they look at the screen, whatever screen they're staring into, and I ask you this question, just imagine you're responding to those folks, including myself. How does one know when it is time to move on to that next chapter?
Yeah, that's it's a personal, individual decision. And everyone is different. You could have told me when I retired, I could have done it a couple years earlier, and then the same life, I'd have been like, awesome. My reasons were I stayed in because of Casey to get her to college. I was ready to retire, but she was going to Mizzou, and we lived in Illinois. So I made a deal with her that we would stay with her till then, right? I had the opportunity even after I retired to move on. But again, for me, I can't take a PT test and I can't deploy. So it wasn't a hard decision for me to make. But for every person, it's an individual decision, right? Some people are like, well, hey, I'm just going to do 30 and retire. And that's fine, right? But your heart, your mind, and more importantly, your body is going to tell you when it's time. And you'll know. Otherwise, like we talked before, the Air Force is going to let you know. And it's always easier to go out on your terms than to go out on someone else's terms. I remember when, I don't know, maybe I was a major, and they had the Colonel's RIF board, or SERB, whatever it's called, Selective Early Retirement Board. There were a lot of people that were frustrated that were colonels that were like, why am I served, right? You let the Air Force make that decision for you. And it's painful versus you doing it on your own. So you'll know. There's no one that can tell you yay or nay. The second thing I would tell you is it's a family decision, and people forget about that. I've seen some people that wanted to take 1 or 2 more assignments, and their families were done. They loved where they lived. Their kids were in high school or whatever it was. And so you got to make sure you have that family incorporated. I love my wife to death, as you know. She's the light of my life. I said she had me at hello. She says, I said you had me at hell no, but I don't understand the difference in the two. But right. But she was kind of, we were apart 32 or 48 months, whether she was going to school, deployment, and then Afghanistan. And then they asked her to be a commander, and we were going to be apart another 2 years. And she said no. At that moment, we had already planned that moment out. So she knew that she was going to retire as a lieutenant colonel. She knew because of the family, right? So a little different. She would have been a colonel today, as you know, if she would have stayed in. But because of that family piece of it, we knew what was going to happen because we didn't want to be apart anymore. Right. And for me, I knew I wasn't on the family side. For me, Sid was going to be a freshman at one of the top three universities there is at the University of Alabama. Casey.
To be debated.
Well, Alabama was doing Texas right. I'm not getting in trouble with any of them. But Casey was a senior, right? Are you going to move your kid your senior year, right? Do you think Deb would have gone overseas with a senior and Sid as a freshman in college? No way. So another factor in my retirement was the family besides my physical being. But it's a great question. No one can tell you.
Yeah.
You just have to, your mind, your heart, and your body will tell you.
Absolutely. And I appreciate that. With our last question, I'm going to bake in something that you and I talked about before we started recording. And you asked me a question, and I think it's a question that's worth everyone hearing. And it was talking about once you retire and hang up the uniform or move on to the next chapter, whatever job you're working in. You asked me a question about would you work 60 hours a week for $250,000? I responded, would you work 40 hours a week for $225,000? I responded, would you work 29 hours a week for $190,000? And those are all different things, right? And it's like, well, the less I worked, the less money I made. And for me, I think my response was, hey, time is important to me, so I would give up money for time any day. So as I bake that in with your final question, do you have any just parting advice for anyone that is soon to transition, already in the middle of transitioning, or have already transitioned? What kind of advice do you offer to those folks?
Call Sims if you have questions. And the number will be at the bottom of the screen scrolling through as you finish this. So great question. So what I asked you actually was not what that is not exactly right? Because I said, what does a day in the life of Shooter look like? That's the question, right?
That's right.
And then I said, right, are you going to work 60 hours for $250,000? When I talk to most people that are going to retire, they either say work or money, right? And they always give, this amount of money. Well, first of all, do you know that the market is driving that amount of money? Are you actually worth that amount of money, right? So on and so forth. So I looked at it a little differently, right? And some jobs offer far more, but again, I'm away from my family then. And I'm back in the military life at 24/7. So I asked the question to everyone, would you work 60 hours for $250,000? And you said maybe. And then I said, would you work 40 hours for $225,000? And you said yes. And then I said, would you work 20 hours for $195,000? And you said yes. When you tell me that, now money is not your driving force, right? Now, I'm not saying that for some people, money is the driving force because of the situation they're in or this or that or the other stuff. But overall, right, now that means something else is your driving force, right? And so what is it? And you said time. And I said, time is not a driving force. What about that time is the driving force, right? Because there's something that you want to do with that time, right? And so for me, when I looked at that day in the life, like I said earlier, it was about family, right? So one of the things for me, it could be like I have to get a remote job so I can work anywhere in the world so I can go see my family. Yeah, that could be one of your requirements when you look for a job because you want to be there. One of your things could be, I do X, Y, and Z. That has to do it. So one of the things like I want to do is I wanted to raise therapy dogs. People know that for a long time and in my condition. But I was able to go volunteer at Paws for Purple Heart, a phenomenal organization that provides service dogs to veterans in need, right? I get to help with Special Olympics for pickleball. And I actually got to help on only once so far playing disc golf, which, I still truly love with Deb. But those were things that were important in my life to give back to my community. It wasn't about the work. Now, it doesn't mean I don't work hard. It doesn't mean I don't get my job done. I get everything that I have to get done, right? But I had to be able to do it where I could meet those things with my family. And so I still work hard. I still put in, as you know, it's the same way. But I know at the end of the day, my family is there and I got to spend that time with them. So remember that. I wasn't looking for, 80 hours a week and $400,000. I'd be like, I'd be dead in a year or two. Right. And so That's what you have to figure out. What is now you have your life, right? In the military, even though they say it's our life, it's really not, because tomorrow they could say, we need you to go deploy, especially with today's environment. So what is that day in your life look like? And once you figure that out, then go find your job so it meets your requirements, not the other way around. That's advice. But I know we're about to end, but I got a couple other things to say, because I
sure, absolutely,
right,
absolutely.
There's a lot going on in the world today. A lot going on. And even though I'm retired, I just want to take a moment to thank all our soldiers, sailors, airmen, Marines, Coast Guardmen, civilians, contractors that are out there doing the hard work today. We forget about them a lot of times. But they're a mother, a sister, a daughter, a husband, a father, a brother, a cousin, a best friend. Right. And don't ever forget when you retire, to still keep those folks in your thoughts and prayers, because they're why we get to live the lives that we do, that we put our lives on the line for all those years. Now someone else is doing for us. And so I just want to tell them thank you for what they do every single day. And thank you for what you're doing, because even with this podcast, you're helping educate us. You're helping making us better. And that's important to do. We forget about that. And the second thing I want to say is I had great leaders in my time, whether it was General Radke, as you know, Colonel Black. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. One of the things we're missing today is that mentorship piece and helping grow the next generation of officers. I was lucky when I was a young lieutenant. I said their names already, Chief Noblin and Chief Noel. But Chief Spencer, Chief Walsh, Chief Bogart, all those folks were there to mentor me, to make me the officer that I was. That's right. Some people love me, some people hate me. You can't help that. That's always going to happen. But we need to take the time to mentor our officers, our enlisted, our civilian, our contractors. Take that time to do that. And lastly, and I said it, earlier, one of my regrets is, the number is now 9 for people that I've worked with that are no longer with us, right? Know your airmen. We're joking about college football all the time because Alabama is better than Georgia. And I just want to make sure you know that the rivalry started. You actually won the first game November 2nd, 1865. But since then, we're 43, 26, and 4. And the largest victory was 36-0. That happened twice. The longest winning streak was 7. That was from 2008 to 2021, right? That's how I relate to my airmen, is college football. Absolutely. And I do it all the time, right? And most people know me for that. But I knew my airmen based on college football. Or whatever. You have to connect with your airmen today, and you have to know what's going on in their lives. And we forget about that. What's their name? Are they married? Do they have kids? Are they doing college? And if they are you encouraging them, right, and helping them out? If you have your major doing IDE, are you encouraging and helping them, right? These are the things that we've forgotten about and we've lost a little bit. Take that time for mentorship, but it's a two-way street. Mm-hmm. The person needs to also come to you asking for mentorship and help when they need it, so that you truly know your airmen. So hopefully we can stop some of the stuff that's going on. And so those are my 3 things I really wanted to highlight while I get a chance with you and tell everyone, know your airmen, know your people, know your civilians, and know your contractors as well. And if you do that, it'll be a better place. And the last thing is, I always say, as you know, during COVID, I would always say, be kind. In this world today, again, it's a rough day. But today, it's amazing. It's February 17th is National Random Act of Kindness Day. I would be remiss if I didn't give you the national day today. But how many times if we just did something kind for someone, it would change the day, change the output. Absolutely. Right? Someone drives past and cuts you off, and what do? We flip them off or whatever. well, it doesn't accomplish anything, right? You go somewhere and you don't get what you ordered and you start yelling at the person behind the counter, right? I see it all the time. Just be kind to everyone and make the world a better place. So I would be remiss if I didn't give you the National Day today. So thank you for choosing today as our day so I could tell you it's National Random Act of Kindness. And thanks for letting me come on your podcast as well. I really do appreciate it. It's been fun. It's been a blast.
Likewise, and that is some extremely sound and solid advice. Those that may not know you, I know that you've been given that, National Day of whatever it may be for quite some time. And I used to look forward to them in the meetings or whatnot. It would be during a time of stress. And then you start off with that and it kind of relaxed the room a little bit. And so that's just connecting to your people. And so I appreciate you and your time. But before I let you go, since we've been talking about military transition, we're going to transition over to something really quickly because you talked about connecting with people and getting to know people. So I'm going to let the people connect with you just a little bit here. I have a very quick 10-question round of what do you prefer that you are not prepared for. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
All right. Question number 1. Would you rather win the lottery or land your dream job?
Or what? Win the lottery or what?
Land your dream job.
Well, probably win the lottery because my dream job is to retire totally.
All right. I like it. Number 2. Would you rather test the waters or dive in the deep end?
I would probably just jump all in, dive in the deep end and be done. Because I'm going to be freezing anyway because it's going to be cold and I hate the cold. So just get it over with.
Very good. Question number 3. Are you glass half full or glass half empty?
Half full all the time. You know that. Got to smile every single day no matter how bad it is. Just keep smiling.
I love it. Question number 4. Condiments, ketchup or ranch?
Oh, ketchup.
Ketchup it is. Number 5, night or morning?
Morning. Definitely morning.
Morning. Number 6, passenger or driver?
Oh, passenger. I could sleep.
Number 7.
And you've ridden with me. Y'all all hate my driving anyway.
This is very factual. Number 7, city or countryside?
Oh, country. So right now I love it. Disc golf every day on my property. Deb and I play it.
Very nice. See, he's living the good life, folks, just so you know. We know that you like the countryside and your disc golf and you're living the good life every day, and that's the way you do it.
And I don't know anyone anymore, so it's quiet and peaceful, right?
Speaking of quiet and peaceful, number 8, would you rather lose sleep or skip a meal?
Oh, I skip a meal, definitely. I love my sleep.
Very good.
Love my sleep.
As you go out and collect all this Alabama gear and all the other stuff, would you rather shop online or shop in the store?
Oh man, probably shop online.
Shop online. Question number 10, last but not least. Would you prefer to start work late or leave work early?
It depends what my family has doing.
Ooh.
So if they got a morning thing, I'm gonna come to work late. If they got an evening thing, I'm gonna leave work early, right? And it's funny you said that too, right? That's a great question because I would tell you this, right? Even as a commander or someone important, make sure you put your family events on that calendar so you know and you can work around them, right?
Absolutely.
That's why that question is really hard. But today, I would say leave early if I had to, only because. Get the work done and be done,
I like it. Well, listen, sir, thank you for playing along with us, not just with what do you prefer, but really just coming on and obligating some time out of your day to share your knowledge and wisdom to help make the transition from the military better for others. So I appreciate you from the bottom of my heart, and I appreciate the connection and relationship that we still have. And again, I just want to thank you for your time. Yeah,
I do too. And if anyone... just shoot me a question or whatever. Or if there's anything I can do to still help, let me know. And if you have tiers, I think on September 18th, it'll be okay. Even with our new coach, we still got Jalen Milroe. We still got a solid defensive front. We're coming after Carson Beck. and you no longer have Bowers and what was his name, McConkey. So we're ready for you, and I'll be texting you right after the game as always.
Absolutely, ladies and gentlemen, 99.9% of the information that Colonel Marc Packer, United States Air Force retired, shared here on this podcast is absolutely awesome. Everything that was revolving around Downing, Georgia, just completely forget about it. Pretend you never heard it. So, ladies and gentlemen, you heard it right here. Colonel Marc Packer, United States Air Force retired. Thank you for helping us with the military transition. Until next time, I'm out.